are here. We are falling slowly. And to the person who, I can't remember who it was today, said they watch me and they don't get seasick. I'm happy to hear about that. So tonight is a very simple night. All we're doing is putting together the floral. Oh, let me turn my notification sounds off. Sorry. Can I do that from here? I can do. Oh, that's hilarious. It was an email from YouTube telling me that I'm live right now on this channel from like on my personal account, telling me Fabrications was live. So it's like, yeah, I know that. Yes, so tonight what we're doing, sorry, I'm gonna roll over here for a second. What we're gonna put together, we're going to sew these 2 blocks together, and we're gonna sew these 3 blocks together, and then we can put the tulips together. Actually, I might leave the tulips until next week. Maybe we'll do 1 sample, and then you really need to like play around with your layout and see how you want things to lay out, especially because they're multiple colors that you're using. So like if I had done this one and I put the blue next to the blue, it could look okay, but it would really, depend. So I strongly suggest like we'll sew the pieces together. So what you're going to end up with is strips like this. So you've got your, I think it's 5.5 by 6.5 inch block in your print, and then the 2 curves. And speaking of the curves, I was speaking with Michelle this week about the orange peel units, these guys, because she's sewing a quilt with a similar piece. And what we decided is that you really do have to make sure that you starch it, because this is a curve. It's on the bias. It's more stretchy, and it tends to warp when you're cutting this. So the best thing to do is to like you have to kind of stretch it back into shape. And I found after the fact that it does work best if you don't trim one side at a time. If you trim them both at the same time, you can get it a little bit more even. And that way, if it's not exactly a 1/4 inch, it's not the end of the world. So yes, so what we're sewing is these. I've done a whole bunch of them already, but I've got 3, and this is one of those piece points where you can really easily chain piece. So you're working and you're sewing and you're sewing and you're sewing and you're sewing and not stopping. So what we're going to do, I'm going to move my camera here down to this spot so everybody can see. So what we're going to do is set them up. And I've seen some funky ones where your the middle block is a different print. And you want to make sure if you're working with a print that everything's going to be oriented in the same fashion. And you've got 1 curve that goes with this way and 1 curve that goes the other way. So I'm just going to pin these together. And all of your blocks should be squared up at this point. And the next one like this. And you can, so there's 1, here's the pink one. Just grab a handful of this. I figured out, I think a lot of people are watching this on the rewatch. So if you're watching this on the rewatch and you have questions, if you leave a comment, I can see the comments after the fact and I will respond to them. As opposed to, and I think you do need an account, but I think did I fail to trim this block? Because it's ginormous. Or let's check out what's going on there. I sewed these like 3 weeks ago. So everything would be ready. This block has not been squared up. That's the issue. So I'm very quickly going to go over to my table here and square it up. And I'll keep talking while I'm off camera because that's not, weird or anything at all. How did I miss one? I think that's nuts. there's a 1/4 inch, and there's a 1/4 inch. Well, this one is like same thing. Square it up, square it up. Anyone who is watching this on the rewatch, or if you like, I don't know if YouTube shows you stuff like after the fact, or not after the fact, like in the middle. Like, where did she go? Why is she not here? There we go. Just needed to trim that a little bit. And we're back. I don't have my little mat tonight. And did not trim that very well. That's okay. And one more. These are all trimmed. I don't know what I was doing. That's okay. And all you're going to do is with your smaller seam allowance, you want to, not seam allowance, smaller stitch length is going to make sure that your seams don't come apart. So choose, you know, something around 1.5, 1.8. And then we can sort of cheat, and at the same time we can sew, and this is where the whole idea of chain piecing comes in well, is we can sew these blocks together. And because mine are like multicolored, I'm going to make sure I pick right ones. And this is the point where I had, this is not a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to have to, if I don't sew it at, if I sew it at a 1/4 inch, it's going to be too, the leaf is going to get lost. Okay, so, and the leaves have to go like this and like, no, this one has to go like this. You have to rotate them a little bit, and that's okay. I want this one to go like this, and this one to go like that. And that's wrong. My leaves need to be opening out. So I'm going to have to put this one on the side like that. That looks better. There we go. Sometimes there's people who are like, oh, what's the trick to making sure things don't go upside down? And I'm like, the trick is make sure that when you open it up before you sew it, it's not upside down. That is the trick. Because I have sewn things multiple times upside down, and you really just have to like realize that you're doing it, or sorry, you realize that you need to check it, and like sometimes you have to rip it out. That's the long and short of that, and there have been many moments. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to bring everybody over here to my machine, and we are going to chain piece all of these together. And I've clipped both of these sides together at the same time. I'm not going to sew through my seam allowance, so I'm going to sew all of these, because then I can cut the threads when I sew the orange peel units. Here we go, just feeding everything through. I never know if I should like talk as I sew. So I've done those 3. So I'm going to sew one of these orange peel units, and I'm going to start from the top, because there's a big thick seam down at the bottom end here where all of those pieces are together. So it's easier for me to feed the top through at the start. Same thing here. Final one. And you can see all of these are like they're chained together, hence chain piecing. So I'm just going to snip the flower blocks, the half circle units. Did I run out of thread? No. Okay. Yes. And then I'm going to go back and add them and do the other side of them. I was quilting the other top all day today, so I've been through, I think, about 3 bobbins worth of thread. It has 1/4 inch quilt lines. It's very dense quilting because it's going to be a quilt. It's going to be a table runner, so I wanted dense quilting to give it some, you know, stiff body. So then you can, we'll come over here. You can clip the threads in between. So I'm going to iron the flower petal pieces first because we don't need these. You can see the way this is that it doesn't quite, I don't know if you can see that there. Like it's not quite nice. If this were a quilt I was gifting to someone, I would probably, I would have redone these pieces because this is just sort of a, I dropped my little iron. I tripped on the cord. Because this is just sort of like a throwaway thing. My kid's going to put it on their bed. I'm not super worried about how, like, and you can give it a nice little, like, stretch if you need to. At this point, you could square up these blocks again, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. And just pick with one side. Don't open up your seam allowance. It's going to be really thick. See, because you can see here at the bottom that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seams all coming together, and it's really, really thick. So if you try to open this up, it is not going to sit flat. Just pick what side it wants to lie to and iron it to that side. So we'll do the rest of these. I wish I had like a time-lapse thingy, but that would require like time-lapse to be a thing you could do in real life, and I don't think that's, you know, possible. No, this one wants to go this way. This one turned out okay, I think. The wool pressing mat helps as well. What the wool does is it captures the heat, and so that you're actually ironing almost from both sides at the same time. And it gives you really nice flat seams. I think we're going to try to go that way. Let's give this a little finger press. First, oh. Yeah, this is not too bad. Okay, so there's those leaf blocks, and just put those aside for now. Now what we're going to do with these is, oh, there's a way that we're going to have to do this because we're going to put them together and we may have to flip how our seams are. So I'm going to do this one as an example. So we're going to put a pink and a blue block together. And then this is where I'm saying, oh no, I can't use this blue block because I have to use a different blue block. These are all, hang on. I made sense of these when I was cutting them, and I made sure I cut them so that they all cut. There we go. So 2 of your curves come together in like that, I guess that half circle as opposed to the quarter circle. And then the tops, let me pull this down so you can see, the tops open up in that, what's reminiscent of that tulip shape. So when you're ironing your pieces, you want to make sure that you're nesting your seams. So one seam is going to be flipped up and one seam is going to be flipped down. Sometimes people refer this as ironing to the light side and the dark side, which these are the similar hued colors, so it's not going to make much of a difference. What we need to make sure when we're doing this is that our sun or star or print is all facing the same way. And so I've got my rainbows are all right side up on this, and it looks like I was smart and ironed my seams appropriately and accordingly. So this is where I'm talking about play around with, hang on, I'm just gonna no, I'll keep that on for a second. Play around with your color combinations, because you're going to have on the baby quilt six bellflowers in total. I don't know if you want to have all, maybe you want all solid color, you want all blue ones. You're going to have a combination of, some that are like this color, some that are, that color. I'm going to work with them like this because this is what the pattern sort of calls for. So all you do here, and I'm just going to sew one as an example, and then what I would do is, work on the floor, work on the bed. If you've got a design wall, work on your design wall, lay out all of your pieces and see what's going to work with each other and in what position, and that will help you prepare for next week as well. So to do this, so one seam is one way, one seam is the other way, and you just butt them together nicely. And do the same thing down here. And then back over here, you sew with that 1/4 inch seam allowance again. And ta-da! I'll give this give this a press here. And again, how you're pressing them is going to make a difference which side you press to based on where your flowers are going to be in your layout. So you may want to figure, you're going to want to figure that out first. I'm just doing this so that it sits nicely right now and we can take a look at it. So let me take a second here, come back up. You can see my face. And it's going to stay because it's a good machine and it listens. Machines need you to, I do that. I told my students that on Monday at the serger class, that I always tell my sewing machines, and especially my cover stitch machine, that it's a nice machine and it works very well. And I usually, pet it and tell it it's a good machine, and then it keeps working for me. So yes, ta-da! So get, you can get these sewn if you'd like for next week. The most important thing, definitely get them, put together in the 3 pieces. And the most important thing for next week, one of the things that we haven't done, is you'll need to have cut out your sashing and your borders. And for the baby quilt, you only need 2 B6 strips, not 3. That's the ones that are 4.5 inches by the width of fabric, and that's going to be the border on the outside. So you have to cut, the sashing is like a strip of fabric that goes in between the flowers, and then the border is what's going to go on the outside, and that's going to make the quilt just that extra little bit larger. And you should have the B2 pieces as well, which are the spacers in between. So that's what it's going to end up looking like. Is you're going to have this, you're going to have the spacer, and then you're going to have a set of leaves. And not all of them, I think we end up with, for the baby quilt, it's on the last page, we end up with 6 flowers, and 3 of them have the leaf units, and 3 of them don't. 4 of them are going to be facing downward, and 2 of them are going to be facing up. So that's it. It's a short video this week. I hope everyone, and I guess catch up if you've been, behind on this. This gives you a little bit of time to catch up. And next week we'll look at putting everything together. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.